If you're a tech founder, you might struggle with shiny object syndrome, where you're constantly looking for the next cool feature or technology to add to your platform. But it's worth considering 64% of tech leaders see no ROI from cutting edge tech like AI, making it a costly trap to chase trends without clear business needs. Today's burning question: why do new ideas allure so many businesses when they return almost zero results?
So working in tech space for over 17 years, here's what we often see constantly happening with tech founders. So they constantly feel that they need to be adding new and new things, distracting with new shiny objects. So what usually we can see is they try to add new dashboards or gamification, or just do, for whatever reason, sleek rebrand. By the way, it's not just the startups, it's also very big companies. I worked once in a company that did at least 3 or 4 rebrands in the space for me working with them. Some companies also add randomly community as a feature, and obviously today every other company is adding AI, even if it doesn't add any value. And as a result, of course, if it's not adding any value to your customers, you will not see better signups, you will not see better retention, and as a result, no better revenue. Because 80% of software features in general are rarely or never used. And as William James said, the art of being wise is knowing what to overlook.
Good one, I like that. So in today's episode, we are looking at the latest and previous trends that were supposed to be game changers, the psychology behind why you fall into this trap of shiny object syndrome, so a couple of real life examples when adding like trendy things worked and when they didn't, and our validation framework, which can save you some real expensive mistakes. So let's kick off. The latest and previous trends that many people kind of hope are going to improve and change the game by adding them. So what's the first one? The first one is gamification.
Yeah,
I've lost track of how many times I've been asked to add this into a product, and in certain times this can make sense. So we're talking about like adding these kind of features to your product, service, or tool where it feels like it's kind of like a game and it's fun. So you get points, badges, rewards, and it can, encourage you. Ultimately is the goal to kind of stay longer and be more compelling.
They'll be more engaged, right?
More engaged, exactly. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes sense, for instance, like in the fitness app that we once kind of almost worked on, a fitness platform, it did make sense to get some budgets because naturally you will be quite competitive. Being like in some CrossFit gym or like whatever, any kind of gym, you might be quite competitive, right? So that totally makes sense. It adds value to you. Maybe you can win some awards, maybe some kind of prizes. So that totally makes sense, right?
Yeah, I think like contextually it makes sense. Games, sports stuff, learning, Duolingo is an amazing example, of course. And as that sort of onboarding, it's giving you rewards and encouraging you to learn. It's kind of trying to make the quite challenging task of learning something new fun. Mm-hmm. So it has its place then. Yeah. But if you're talking about like a B2B platform and it's a business product, gamification is kind of like misplaced.
Yeah, I mean, I had a client also who wanted to add it to loan applications or kind of mortgages application, and it felt like this is not a great place because if you know, like people who are taking those things are probably usually quite stressed out, so adding budgets or like rewards might not be necessarily kind of making them more engaged. I would say it's kind of like I interviewed people who are taking loans. They actually quite stressed people, and sometimes we actually can be embarrassed by the fact that we need to take a loan, right? So it's not the mixing those two probably might not work really well, but who knows? What would you always say? You should test and see.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, virtual reality. It's sort of like gone a bit quiet now, but there was a time, a few, like 5, 6, 8 years back, where a lot of companies would request virtual reality as like, this would be the game changer that we could include. And again, a difficult one to actually implement and use and wear. And
well, you have to have a device first of all, right, to actually see that. I mean, it's working great in games and platform like such, but I remember also by one client, they really wanted to introduce that for Western shows, to like on the website of I think maybe some kind of horror show. I don't remember. They wanted people to kind of wear headsets and then kind of participate in this kind of almost a game. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere, but there was a pressure of having this experience.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how much Apple have actually struggled with that also.
Exactly. Like with their, oh my God, Vision Pro, is it? Yeah. I think now they even, is it, I don't know if it's true or not, but they kind of stopped making them or something like that. I'm not sure, but I think it's not going really well with that because of like the sort of, the effort that you need to buy the device, then you need to wear the device. And then not everything will be working really well also. So there's a lot of like stages of this not working.
Yeah, I'm not sure they've completely given up on it. I think they've got another.
Okay.
But it definitely was a challenge in terms of like selling them. I think because of the cost. It's quite massive.
Yeah, of course, it's like really high.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a virtual reality aspect to that everybody was excited about. Is like in hotel industry, like you could see where you're going before you go there. But then again, that would imply that everyone has got the device.
Yeah, it did. Actually, I'm thinking it has been used, or not really, in property. But less so virtual reality, and it's kind of more morphed into someone walking around.
Yeah, like it's just video, making the video with your phone.
Which is actually better and much more cost effective.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Cool. So, another one is an interesting one. I remember I worked in the very big agency at the time, contracting and consulting with them, and they were super excited about metaverse. I think the head of agency had this vision that their business is going to be in the metaverse. They were going to buy land and have some brands there. I remember there was like concerts being performed in metaverse. Some huge brands were like bringing their shops in there. It was absolute madness at the time, but I think in the end the total loss I think for Meta was around 60 billion since 2020 on metaverse, and I think it's now completely sort of forgotten story, and probably Meta doesn't even want to talk about it anymore. But I remember it was a huge thing and everybody needed to get on that. It almost was like a Bitcoin thing, a madness, but it didn't actually pick up. But I know a lot of companies spent lots of money and people buying land. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah, I'm sure that's still happening actually. I don't think it's completely gone away.
I know, I remember I read somewhere that Meta was actually asking the employees to allegedly go and actually interact in metaverse so they can increase the engagement on the platform, which I thought was quite sad. If it did happen, I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, that's always good.
Yeah.
One that's actually still pretty prevalent, and it kind of probably makes sense if you think about the amount of platforms out there now, is social sharing. So adding features into your product so you can kind of share content and actions with people as you do stuff. Again, can be good, can work really well. I mean, Spotify is a great example of where they've done this, and at the end of the year it's quite good because it's kind of contextual and seasonal. So at the end of the year, showing your kind of like top 10 or what your most listened records were, and you kind of share that. It's like quite a cool piece of engagement.
Are we talking about like a social sharing where you have like a button when you click and then you can share somewhere?
Yeah. Share something that you've been doing within the product. Yeah. I
do remember this being overdone massively everywhere for no reason. Also, like all of our clients were asking to add this somewhere. I remember in some financial situation, like financial platforms, but I can't even recall, but it was some really, I think also with the Western show, I think you could, create yourself as a character from, from some show. I don't know how many people actually were doing this. And then you could share it. Of course, like
That's
it was
quite cool.
Have you actually done that?
No, I was thinking...
Which cat from Cats are you?
Yeah, exactly. But I think some of those things are fun when it's...
if it's appropriate.
Yeah, or you've been to something out, it's like an experience, so you kind of like want to share that. Like if you went to an event or gig or Glastonbury or something, I'm sure they must have stuff where you share...
Yeah,
that you've been to see gigs, it's
but
like
not so
Spotify.
much like a financial app. You're not going to be
No.
like sharing stuff so much from your application that tell people how much money you have.
Yeah, exactly. No one's going to want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so point is like we don't want to just jump on whatever trend and add that stuff in without thinking if it makes sense for us and our
always
users.
contextually. Does it make sense? What are you celebrating with this share? Is this something that your users are actually going to want to share? I mean, some people might not want their
At all.
Spotify playlist being shared with others, but who knows?
Yes, I would probably embarrass with my list, so I probably would not share.
Yeah,
Maybe you would be like more eager to do that.
Yeah, I would.
But all right, another thing that I think has become at some point absolutely crazy. Again, I remember that creating for one of the clients, and they were adding. So it was an agency, and they were adding community as a package for every single client they were working with, for no reason.
Interesting. I feel like that's come full circle now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like people have got a bit tired with social media, and they there's a more awareness.
The main social media.
Yeah, more awareness of like what that actually entails, and your algorithms being hyped for engagement. So you may be not necessarily seeing all of your friends' birthdays and stuff, so you're just being sold more and more stuff. So I see that like communities are actually being built quite successfully off
So
of
they
those
more
platforms.
so they like more specialized communities.
Yeah, niche. Yeah,
that makes sense.
But they're probably out, and I'm thinking maybe WhatsApp groups more than actually within the technology. Yeah, it's quite a challenge to actually create a community within a technology. I do remember that time. Actually, 10, 15 years ago in agency world, that would always be a go-to. Yes, let's create a community and a vibe and excitement around this particular launch. I'm thinking of a new Rolls-Royce launch. But it's like, yeah, cool. That is a tough, challenging.
Well, I'm thinking if I have a Rolls Royce, do I want to join a community?
Exactly. That is interesting. Yeah. How many Rolls-Royce owners are going to be sitting on the phone?
But who knows?
Yeah.
If it works for you, then go for it. But again, just be very careful with like, does it actually make sense? I mean, today Notion and Figma, they both have really good creative community where you both get some value and tips from other people, and also you can get free templates.
Yeah, that's true. That Figma has an amazing creator community.
Yeah, it's very good.
Resources, stuff that they've already done. That's really aligned with the product and kind of makes sense because it gets you started on things. If you're new or even experienced, you can kind of pick up components, libraries. Yeah,
it's like ready really products great. Almost.
Yeah.
And but just adding community for no reason. I know, like I spoke to one founder, and she said her application, I think it was like a parenting application, don't remember the details, but she said it wasn't doing really well, so she's adding the community to it. So that's kind of like not maybe necessarily gonna add value. I don't know. It's just like be quite careful like what we do and why we're doing it and how much it's going to cost us. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Like, why are you doing it? I mean, if you add the community and then figure out what the real problem is that you're missing, and then pivot your product from that would work.
I know a lot of people these days create free communities, right? And we actually have our own community coming up for founders and creators who want to optimize their sort of products, ask questions and share stuff. But I think in general, I've seen, and I've spoken to a couple of founders who actually their product is a community, free community, and then they're trying to move to paid community. So the same people that they had, let's say they have several thousands of people, and then they want to move them to paid community, and then it completely fails because from thousands of people you get like 100. So that's a big challenge. And if it's your kind of main product, you also have to be sort of mindful, like what is the value and what people actually would be willing to pay for. So there's like a lot of questions around that. And it's not just straightforward, just add community to everything.
Yep.
Similarly, I want to combine the two together, the blockchain and NFTs. Like blockchain, obviously, it was a huge thing. It was a keyword. You needed to put it on your CV if you wanted to apply to any tech job, any position. So blockchain was supposed to change everything, and every platform was supposed to run on it, which obviously didn't happen. It does work on, obviously, in the crypto world, 100%.
So it is changing.
So it's changing things, but I think there was a view at some point that every single platform is going to run on this. Decentralization was a big thing. I don't know if it's happening so much now, but everybody wanted to be in that space. Now it's not so much. I think those people who didn't know what it meant now don't have to learn what it is. And similar with NFT, it was such a massive thing. I remember our friend, he was doing a lot of art on that, and at some point he actually was making quite a lot of money by selling art. I remember this story. That was like a 12-year-old girl, and she was like literally making hundreds and thousands of pounds from creating art, from like coding. Like she was coding in order to create art. It was absolutely incredible. And I think a lot of people like made lots of money, but currently 95% of NFT has zero market value. And I think lots and lots of people actually lost lots of money on that.
Yeah, I think they're like the things, like, because they're all still about now, but they just haven't done that, like hit that massive adoption curve. What's the name of that graph? The
Never
graph
remember.
that your like your adoption of technology. There's like the early adopters and the mass market. So they haven't really sort of like launched into the mass market, but they're in the early stages and they don't really get past that.
Well, it was like a massive hype, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about it, and now it has no value. But I'm just saying, like, if every business who jumped on that straight away. I remember even a couple of people who are non-technical were saying to me that they will create NFTs in order to like invest and stuff, like, and it was like everybody had to be in that. But just like we're just saying, like, be mindful, like what you jumping on and getting distracted from real things that actually can make money for you.
Yeah, and then the biggest one currently at the minute is AI, right? Artificial intelligence. So tech mimicking human thinking, learning patterns, making predictions and automating tasks. And now even we've got like agents, which is kind of amazing and mind-blowing. At the same time.
I was reading actually that one founder on LinkedIn, he was saying that he was planning to hire a PA, but actually now connected his calendar and Gmail to an agent, and then he just like that agent analyzes his day, optimizing his task, and reminding him like what emails he didn't reply to, drafting those emails in his tone of voice. He just needs to press send. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
That is mad. I want to know how these people are getting these things working, because every time I go to a new AI platform, it's just like
it's just not
I
really
don't know
doing
what's
it.
that. Yeah, I think I need to practice it. I'm getting much better. My prompting skills are improving, and we've actually crafted a couple of cool prompts to help us with kind of analysis to speed things up. So but they're like tools where it's kind of off the shelf. We'll create you a product in like one go, just put in like a few sentences, kind of seem to fail. But I guess it's about working with it as it's kind of like crafting, and it's like a standalone piece. Because there's so much hype and noise around AI, it feels like everybody is trying to just push it into all of their platforms and services without too much consideration of like where and why and how is it going to happen. Like with Aura, it's on the front page of Aura. Every time
Are you using it? Like, what does it do? What's AI in Aura?
Not so much. It's just the button on the home screen. When I click it, it kind of gives me a little bit of an oversight. It's kind of telling me what I can see in the data already.
So you can see it, but it just summarizes for you.
Yeah,
or
a little
like
bit.
that.
Maybe there's some more help around the, things that you could try, which are actually already in the app anyway. So maybe it's just surfacing content. So I don't tend to really use it that much. I mean, I know what I'm looking for on my data, and I know what I'm doing in real world with my like health, and so then I'm taking the real world understanding, looking at the data and thinking, okay, that's working or not working. So the AI doesn't have that context. So when it's relaying to me just what's in the app already, kind of marketing stuff, it seems like maybe it could be more useful.
Well, I use the app called, I think it's called Cycle. It's basically about making sure you wake up in your like end of the sleeping cycle, so you feel energized so on. It was quite a good application actually. I should go back to it and use it again. But what I was trying to say, it uses AI to give you some kind of insights in your sleep, apart from obviously very useful functionality of listening to us snoring, which is great.
There's only one of us that snores here.
It recognizes who is snoring, and I must say it's not me. And
so there you go. It doesn't work. There's another example.
And actually, it gives the some insights on like how you were sleeping. Now the insights
very
really
loudly.
the insights are, I would say, like not very useful. But first of all, they're constantly the same. They like will tell me, oh, your kind of sleep pattern is 80% or 70% of average person in the region where you are, which also sounds really weird, like when you say region or something, or area.
Yeah, because like, what does that mean?
I don't know. What does it mean, like in UK or on this side of the globe? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I guess maybe it's a certain demographic using that app. But I was thinking, wow, there must be so many people of different ages, walks of life, sleeping in that
maybe
area.
I don't know. I don't want to bash it, because I found actually waking up with this was working really well. But in terms of the usefulness of the AI insights, I felt like I read it maybe 3 times, and because it sounded exactly the same, I was like, well, I don't like, it's not even doing anything. And the advice it would give me was the same, was like, try to make the room colder before the sleep, or try to avoid blue light. I mean, I know I need to avoid blue light, but I need to look at some memes before falling asleep, right? So it's actually not really helpful. So, I mean, we need to think about like how we're gonna integrate that AI in the app, and is it adding any value for the user?
Yeah, and I think that they may be missing out because they don't have that fuller understanding of different user categories and what their challenges might be, and then they could, if they did have that, they would have that data set to provide more custom advice to that particular user, rather than the kind of blanket surface sort of marketing stuff.
Yeah, and also that Cycles app, I would rather it ask me what I struggle with, like, and then give me some advice, rather than like, switch off the lights or whatever, something like that. So I think it needs to be more interactive, so it gets more data from like real life context.
Yeah, I think that maybe there's just such a push from investors to kind of get it in. People have just like, throw it in and then we'll figure it out. So maybe that's,
well, I guess is the way we go.
I mean, there's that kind of example with Snapchat, the Snapchat AI bot, the chatbot My AI, powered by OpenAI's GPT. So that gave some pretty disturbing advice to users posing as minors in 2 separate tests, one run by the Center for Humane Technology co-founder Asa Raskin, if I pronounced that right, Asa Raskin, with a 13-year-old, and the second test was run by the Washington Post with a 15-year-old, and they discovered that the AI was offering some pretty dodgy advice, tips on sex with adults, masking drug use,
well, useful,
and lying to your parents, raising some serious kind of safety concerns. So obviously there's some backlash from experts and lawmakers criticizing Snapchat, which is used by like 16% of teens in the US.
You say 60?
60, sorry, yeah, 60% of teens in the US. there was some backlash from experts and lawmakers criticizing Snapchat, understandably, which is used, I didn't realize this, 60% of teens in the US for deploying this experimental AI without like any safeguards, forcing them to then introduce parent controls in 2024 after mounting pressure, which, you know, it's understandable and they should have done that. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That's a really crazy, but it's a really great example of like just adding something on top without thinking how it's going to actually work.
Yeah, and particularly that audience is kind of like quite sensitive, right?
Yeah, vulnerable.
Yeah.
But especially with AI, because nobody knows what actually it can do. And some people at Google and so on, they say they actually don't know how Google knows things it knows, right? So it's kind of like really unpredictable. So you have to be kind of careful and see lots of use cases before you kind of launch something.
Yeah. There's this really great quote from Leonardo da Vinci: "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication."
I love that.
I love that too, right?
I think it really works really well with Steve Jobs, I think.
Yeah.
The kind of idea of how products should be.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's interesting, like, what is the psychology behind, right? Because we all know this, like, we should not be jumping on new ideas constantly because it's like removes the focus on one thing, especially, you know, there's a tendency of like, because it's boring to go one direction when we know this might bring us money. So we want to just try other things because this one is boring. So we want to like, oh, this sounds really cool. This sounds really cool. And so we, as a result...
External pressure as well.
Oh, external pressure as well and so on. But let's talk about like a little bit of about the psychology behind shiny objects syndrome, like why we are so attracted to it. And I know myself that thank God I have you to always say like, you're getting distracted again, and, you know, just go back to I think we need Simon, everyone needs Simon in their life to kind of like direct him back into the one direction rather than going all over the place. So I think one of the reasons tech businesses get really distracted by new ideas is this innovation illusion where, you know, building the new features feels like real progress, it's tangible, it's really exciting. You know, you get to ship something, show something, and you can brag about it. If you're like part of the communities on WhatsApp, you can talk about it to investors and to the customers. But obviously, often it's not solving anything new. And on top of that, you're spending time and energy where you could spending it on something that actually bringing money for you and value for your customers.
Yeah, well, it feels like progress, right? That's the thing. You're kind of adding something. It's innovative because everyone's talking about it. You've got pressure to feed into your investors, and I totally see how that happens. Another one on the kind of around this like psychology theme is competitor paranoia. So
Right.
you're like, company X has just launched this, so we have to then also launch this feature. So it's like, we've got that, we need this too, without really thinking of, does it actually make sense? I mean, your competitor may have actually made a massive mistake, and you don't really know whether that's working or not, but you just follow on. I mean, that happens a lot with the big organizations. They will just be like, they'll just tend to sort of lean towards one successful competitor and then just want to kind of follow what they're doing in the hope that that's going to relay, when actually, if you kind of take a step back and think about what's our customer base like, how can we serve them better, if you understand them better, you might think of things that are better than what your competitors do.
Yeah, the real innovation is not going to be found within what your competitors are doing, already done. The real innovation is within understanding what your customers need and introducing like the problem solving that other people haven't tried yet.
Yeah.
Right. This is real innovation. Now, another reason why companies very often follow all these ideas and stuff like that is obviously following the trend, right? Which we already just kind of covered. So adding AI, gamification, metaverse. So you convince yourself that we need this latest new thing. Otherwise we'll fall behind. But tracking trends is rarely moves real kind of metrics or like adding much in terms of value for your your customers or your revenue, because users really care about the outcomes. They don't really care about whether you added AI or not. And in fact, I spoke to a couple of founders recently who admitted that they have added AI because of the pressure from the stakeholders and so on, but actually it didn't make any difference. Even more so because a lot of customers these days are so scared about AI replacing jobs, they actually have a negative connotation with the AI itself. So whenever they see AI, instead of like something that doesn't look like AI, they kind of don't want to use it. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a scary fact about something like you were 60% more likely to get investment if your platform had AI in it. So
if it had AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could be exactly the same concept, but if it had AI, you're 60% more likely to get investment if it didn't have AI.
Well, I think I totally get it, because if I was an investor and I would like it to be more like modern solution, and AI is awesome and we use it every day, but it's like we need to ask a question: does it add to other customers like value?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to say, that there is a something called the demo trap.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the founders very often like to add new things, because then when they demo the product to potential customers or potential investors, it feels good to talk about the new cool thing, right? So features that impress in 5 minutes, demos rarely kind of translate in the daily usage value. And on top of that, I know founders really love doing demos anyway, but the issue is that the people actually very often can't then discover those features by themselves when it's not in demo format.
Yeah, and you can fall into that trap of gathering feedback that way, thinking you're speaking to your customers, but you're actually demoing the product. So it's like it's actually a sales pitch than
the demo itself.
Yeah. Rather than kind of gathering insights. But I can totally see that. It feels like, also, if you're just having the same conversation, demoing the same stuff all the time, you can see how you'd want to add in new features to
that's a very good point.
Your process. Bit like the fifth one we've got here is just like, so we look busy. Shipping constantly kind of creates this illusion of momentum, this feeling of progress. It feels productive to release something and actually get something out, but behind the scenes it's not really adding more weight, and actually possibly even making the product more clunky.
Absolutely. So activity doesn't really mean impact.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. That's right. And then another thing that we did sort of allude on there was this like want to impress your investors. There must be just so much pressure on founders now to invest, to use like AI to get investment.
Yeah.
So
I had
adding in these trendy like bits of software
makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I had one founder who I worked with, and he wanted me to help him kind of optimize the platform so that he can get better conversion on it. And he was doing really well. We were doing the coaching with him, and at some point he came to me and said, look, the investor said that if I don't add AI, they're going to pull all the investment. So he focused suddenly, instead of like, how can I get better conversion? It was like, where could I add AI? And eventually he got so distracted that I think the whole product kind of got binned, because he just like didn't know what to do with that. So that was quite a destructive power of like adding something randomly, right? But I've seen also a lot of companies, like when things are not going really well, like if they don't get good conversion, retention, and somebody mentions to them, try this or try that, try this third-party analytical tool or this tool or AI tool or whatever, they feel like if they add something in panic really quickly and trying lots of different things, and one of the things is going to work, if the conversion is down, maybe add onboarding AI. If the retention is weak, maybe add gamified strikes or something. But those kind of panic patches, not systematic and like fixes, when you understand why things not working and what's going to fix them, you don't really fix anything, right? It's
Yeah.
like I personally have never seen things not working out and you just randomly add in things and then suddenly they're getting fixed, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like if you have problems with diet or you're like allergic to something, instead of testing yourself which nuts I'm allergic to, you just kind of like, or which food I'm allergic to, properly testing it, you just like testing like by yourself, which is gonna like get you in the hospital, right? So much better thing is to properly test it and know exactly what's not working for you, and then just not doing that, right?
Yeah, and I think that comes down to like a lack of experience, because I guess if you're a founder and you're building tech and you're doing it for the first time, you don't really have a kind of like strategic view of, okay, where should the focus be? So if you're not getting the results that you're looking for, I can understand the panic and just want to kind of add stuff.
And everybody gives you like different advice.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You've got people like investors are actually giving you money to continue and make stuff, and they're advising. So it's like the only people you need to speak to and listen to are your customers. That is where you're going to find every answer to your problem. I would say that should be a focus for everyone. Yeah. And then okay, and finally we've got like this fear of missing out. So everyone's talking about this, insert trend, AI, gamification, all these things that we've covered, and you feel like you might be behind or you feel like late, but this like building from fear rarely leads to kind of great products. And I think that this is why I'm like particularly excited about working with founders that have a mission, because they've seen a problem in the real world and the focus is the problem, not the technology. I think there's a lot of people in the space that are excited around kind of just building technology because it's kind of cool. Fun, but actually what makes the best founders I've ever seen have like real world life experience in a industry or sector, and they come across a problem that they are like mad passionate about fixing, and like they personally, I think they're like super exciting to kind of like work with because they're focused on the problem. So you can kind of talk strategically and think, okay, let's get under the I've lost my train of thought.
So they're not looking for the
answers
problem for the solution.
Yes, so you got it right.
Yeah.
They're not.
So they're not looking for the problem to the solution they have.
Yeah.
They're looking for a really big problem, and then which way is the best to solve that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the eyes on the problem, not looking at the technology to solve.
Yeah.
Because the technology, like all great technology, solves real world problems in a like elegant and easy, efficient way. That's why we kind of use them and come back to them day after day.
Yeah, I remember there was like a really cool speech by Steve Jobs, and I think I don't remember what it was about, but essentially what he was saying, your customers don't care about what technology you use, like what kind of connection or whatever voltage is on your printer or whatever. Like they just don't care about the spec. They care about how easy it's going to be. Press the button and print out what I need to print out, which obviously never worked anyway, because I think it's easier to carve something in the stone than make your printer actually to work sometimes.
Or pay for the ink as well.
Or pay for the ink, yeah. That's like an industry scam, basically. You keep buying.
Yeah, that's it. It 100% is. I can't remember. There's like 1,000% increase on the cost of ink.
Yeah, it's like that's how the companies make money now on the printer.
A fortune out of that. Yeah, so you've got this like trend adoption cycle.
Yeah.
So you have like a new technology or a trend which gets hyped. So then every company feels the pressure to adopt it. Features get built without kind of clear user cases or reasons why that's going to happen, and then usage is obviously disappointing. So you just like resources that are just kind of like wasted and could have been used like in other places much more
efficiently. Yeah,
exactly.
You know how many times I've heard, probably at least 3 really big companies that I was helping with their product, and they would somebody from the top would come and say, you know what, let's make this application like Amazon, so it's like for everything. So it can do anything and everything because it works for Amazon, so we'll do it as well. Yeah, but reality is like, obviously it's just like it's not gonna work for everyone, and it's how long it took Amazon to become Amazon. And initially they were really good at just selling books.
Yeah.
Right, it's like gradually they almost like I think went bankrupt when they switched from just books to other stuff. So it's actually not very straightforward at all. No. So now when somebody says, "Oh, let's just become Amazon," it's really funny.
Yeah.
I've recently heard that from very big company, so that's why I sort of like remember that.
And there's this great quote from Steve Jobs that said, "Innovation is not about saying yes to everything; it's about saying no to all but the crucial features."
Yeah, this is brilliant. So it's like how to say no to things. And let's talk about like if you have an idea for a new feature and you feel the pressure, you get excited about it, like we have some kind of frameworks that people can use to kind of like at least start questioning if they should introduce that. And don't get me wrong, like we're not saying that don't do new things, don't do innovation, don't do exciting things, not at all. Definitely try things. And you by the end of the day, if you are building something, if you already have working digital platform, you want to be excited about it, you want to be like interested in working on it for many years to come. So the sooner you work out what is the good framework for checking whether it's worth investing into something or not, the better. And then you are able to create innovation that actually brings value to your customers and for your business, right? So one of the framework that we could look at is the pain point audit framework, right? So before building anything new, you can ask yourself, what specific pain does this solve, right? Does this pain align with the main problem that your platform solves today? Let's say you want to add a new feature, right? Or like AI. How much would customers would pay for this to have this pain removed? So that can apply to B2B and B2C as well. So the big red flags here would be if you can't articulate the pain in one sentence, maybe it's not really there to even be addressed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem I see quite a lot when you ask, okay, what does it do? And then it's a never-ending
description.
Yeah. I guess the simpler that is, the easier it is to communicate, and the more clarity you have on that problem that it's actually overcoming. The second part of this kind of framework off of the top of your kind of pain point audit is if we were to look at usage prediction test, where we take the kind of exercise of writing down your honest prediction. So how many users will use this feature weekly, let's say? What percentage of your user base might actually need this feature? And how will this feature impact your key revenue metrics? And what will happen to the adoption of your core features? Are they gonna kind of be impacted by this? And a really important kind of reality check to think about when you're doing this as a founder is that most founders will overestimate by 5 to 10 times how well a feature will do. So if this is if you're estimating, try dividing that estimate by 5 or 10 and see what those metrics kind of come out like after you've done that.
I think that's only founders and startups can apply it. I think whatever we talk about, because we worked with so many different size companies, all of those methods really work with any size tech business, right? Because I've seen very big businesses spending millions on the features or additional products that actually never take off, right? I remember, I'm not going to say the name of the brand, but I remember there was a huge international company that spent I think, over a year working on this new additional sort of product that they're offering. I think it was maybe from 4 to 6 million pounds they spent on that. And by the end of that, and that was a retail product, they had 12 users, which was absolutely horrible outcome. I think they were kind of okay, because that wasn't their main revenue stream, but I'm just saying the sort of assessment or prediction of the usage is very important that you just covered.
Yeah, expensive test that.
Yeah, they did it very expensively. So another test you can run is feature demand validation, and it should be based on real user signals, right? So instead of building the feature straight away, you can put it under coming soon, or vote for this feature. So you kind of like test the engagement and interest in potential feature before you even commit to doing anything, right? So you can then click engagement around clicks and votes, and maybe even you can add some kind of wish list or sorry, not wish list, but maybe waiting list, which can actually inform you whether it's worth investing. So follow up with the short feedback forms, or maybe even call with the customers who engage with that particular, or say express interest in this particular feature, right? And then you can cross-reference interest with the actual usage behavior, right? Do they actually need that at all? And success metric, I would say if fewer than 20% kind of interact with this, active users engage or express interest, maybe it doesn't need to be prioritized. I mean, unless 20% you feel like it's a lot, but I would say probably 20% is not potentially worth investing unless this feature will be bringing lots of money for you.
Yeah, makes sense. And Daniel Priestley has a great, recommendation along this line of testing out something. He was suggesting just adding up a web page and having a quick form field to sort of submit your interest via an email. It's like a great way to validate like an idea, not necessarily a feature, but an idea specifically before going to town and like building something out. So that's kind of along those lines. Another thing that you can do is just like improving existing features.
Nobody likes that, of course, because it sounds really boring.
Well, if they're working, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, like that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So instead of adding new features, look at like making your existing features kind of more valuable. So like add in depth to what users already use. So, look at where there might be some frictions in your current kind of like workflows or journeys, and improve the experience of features that drive retention already. There's one client that I was working for on the homepage of that application. Actually, it came from one of the users during sort of validation process. They suggested having a drop down to flip between the different categories of items saved on the dashboard. So we introduced that as a new kind of feature on the dashboard already, where you had kind of deep links. So it meant very the audience were super busy and rushed and didn't have like hardly any time at all. So them being able to open up the application, like press one, click, choose the category of items, and then another click, and they're into the content that they needed, was a great way of like improving what they had already and making it more stickier and less clicks for them, and then they're getting straight to their content. They absolutely loved that.
Love that. So basically we're saying, instead of introducing new shiny features, like polish the ones that you already have and people are using.
There's always room to improve and add. And, if you've got something that's working already and people like that, run some sessions with the customers to see how. I mean, you can't ask that question, how you might improve it, although sometimes it will come up as a good suggestion. But there's always work that can be done on what you have already.
And that goes really well with the last point I want to make in here, how you can sort of validate or improve your platform without actually spending on new stuff. Is like something called 1% better philosophy. And essentially, sometimes most valuable improvements are almost invisible and not as exciting as adding AI agent to your platform. For instance, faster page load times, right? It sounds really boring, but actually a lot of people will just stop using your platform, or you stop using your application only because it loads very slowly.
Yep.
I think I probably have like left pages before because they were not loading easily. Another very boring thing to talk about, but actually really, really important, is working on less app crashes, for instance. So one client I worked with, they had really, really bad reviews on app stores. App Store and Google Store, or Google Play rather, and they were working on lots of different new features, new offers, and so on. And what really did make a difference was fixing the bugs that were causing the crashes for the customers, and the rating went up straight away just because it stopped crashing. Right, so no new things introduced, but it's just improving this like invisible things that actually create lots of issues. But, like clear error messages, right? I remember we worked with one huge client where we spent lots of months helping them optimize their error messaging in the forms, which obviously then resulted in them having conversion of the registration or signups increasing by 154%. But that was just like working on the very small, boring things that nobody actually wants to talk about, but made a massive difference. And I think it contributed to over £1 million more making them a year just from those small changes.
Yeah, well, there's it's like so often overlooked, that like really simple thing of an error message, because it might just be not considered completely in the process, and then it's left to the development team. They just put in the kind of what makes sense to them, and it's doesn't make sense to the end person. There's nothing more annoying, and you get an error message come up, and it's not clear what the next step is. How do you kind of fix this yourself? Everyone wants to move forward.
Yeah, but obviously it doesn't make a very exciting post, or like or like you're not gonna go and talk to journalists about this. You're not gonna get an award for that probably either. But like in terms of business returns, those are real solid money, right? We're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. They completely are. So, okay, let's round it up. So how, to overcome this shiny object syndrome, what we're kind of basically saying is adding shiny new features on top of a broken experience isn't necessarily going to improve your conversion, retention, improve revenue and profits. Like, in fact, a flat revenue is a symptom. The real disease really is kind of like understanding your users to know what actually needs to be fixed. So don't necessarily jump on those kind of trends that are being pushed and kind of in your face daily, and your investors and all the advice around you. Think, who are the people we're trying to serve? What is their problem? And that is where the answers will be. And maybe you can use some of those trends, but in a way that's suiting and supporting of your actual customers. So winning teams fix what matters most. And when we're adding what's cool, they know why they're doing that, right?
That's a very important thing, why we're adding something.
Yeah, exactly. If you can kind of articulate that with yourself and your team, then you can be confident in the action that you're taking. So I think you said it before, that the best innovation is making the essentials feel effortless. So, if you've got stuff that's working, you've got traction on your product, platform, service, people are like using some key features, have a look at those features and see where and how they can kind of be improved, iterated on, and make them even more enjoyable to use or effortless. AI, right? We can supercharge your product, or it can become the most ignored, annoying feature you've ever launched.
I think people will hate this episode just because we're saying don't add anything, but that's not our point.
No,
right?
We're not saying don't add anything. We're just saying like understand why and how it's going to help. And if you're throwing in AI, it shouldn't be on your customer to figure out how best to use it.
Yeah,
it should be on you to understand what is going to be the most useful to them.
And sorry to interrupt you, like really quickly, I actually had one client recently who had really bad onboarding experience, and people getting confused, not knowing how to use the product. But instead of fixing that, he actually focused on adding AI to the platform, which obviously is not like the best solution. So first fixing this basics and then introducing innovation is much better, and like in the long term and financial terms.
Yeah, completely agree. So new ideas only work when they're validated and aligned with what our real users needs.
Yeah. All right. So let's close up this episode. For this week, we have a challenge for you. So look at your product roadmap right now. If you're planning more than 2 new features launches for the next quarter, let's say, use our frameworks that we just discussed to validate those features before building. It will save you money, it will save you frustration, and you will be able to use that energy to build something that could be very useful for you. So if you haven't talked to your customers in 30 days, that's probably a red flag. We encourage you to do it tomorrow. If you can't explain how each planned feature will impact your revenue, maybe it's not so great to introduce it. And if your core features have known issues already, but you're building the new ones, maybe stop yourself and revisit those features and fix them. So thanks so much for tuning in to Building Great Tech. If this episode made you question your roadmap, great. That means you're finally prioritizing the right things and profit over being cool. If you know someone who has got problem with shiny object syndrome, please share this episode. You might save him a lot of time and frustration. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, like this video, connect with us on LinkedIn and other socials, send us questions. We'd love to answer some of them right here. And lastly, go to buildinggreattech.com for free guides, tips, how to make your platform more customer focused and profitable. See you next time.